Welcome back to Next Stage Podcast, everybody. We got Jerome Goosman joining us today, coming in virtual as things have been going these days. And he's been on before. I think it was 2 years ago. We just kind of sorted that out. And he's a guitar player, does music lessons as well, but also has been part of touring bands and things like that. So just going to catch up and see what's going on. So what's been going on with you in the past 2 years, man? What are you doing now?
Oh, 2 years.
Yeah, you don't have to go through the whole timeline. But...
Oh, man. Well, I guess the biggest thing over the past 2 years is I've been touring with a singer-songwriter. His name's Sawyer Fredericks. He's like a folk Americana singer-songwriter, and I've been touring with him just as his guitarist, along with a couple other friends of mine who you might know, Chris Thomas. And I don't know if you know Gannon Farrell, but he's our bassist at the moment. And so we've been touring the country. I think we've done like 3 national tours in the past couple of years. And obviously it's been kind of cut short this year, but we're hoping to at some point eventually get back on that.
So what is that like? Because we're in a touring band that was, part of your income career, et cetera. When all this stuff happened, like, were you guys on tour at all or preparing for anything? Like, what exactly was your experience with playing?
Yeah, actually, when this went down in March, we were like just ready to head out to the West Coast. We had dozens of shows lined up. We were booked well into the fall. And we basically had the whole year laid out for us, and then this whole thing hit. So yeah, and then here we are.
So did you guys have like plane tickets booked, like ready to go begin the tour, then had to undo things? Like what was that like when you first found out? Did you really know it was going to be this extensive?
No, Well, first of all, we don't have a plane yet, yeah. At least, and we travel around via van, lots and lots of driving, and we had shows pretty much lined up from here all the way out to like California and back, and then slowly the news kind of came in that those weren't that they weren't happening. And then I guess like after maybe like a few weeks of like limbo, like not knowing what was going on, the tour was kind of officially canceled or postponed. It's not canceled, we're gonna get back at it. But yeah, I mean that was like it was kind of a shock, but we all kind of like pulled through, and we actually got a chance to like meet up a couple times during the pandemic and record a music video, and we actually played a couple like remote shows. So it wasn't too bad.
What do you do for the remote shows? Was it something like streaming wise or just like people were far enough away? What do you mean by remote?
So we played, do you know Daryl's house?
Yeah.
The venue. So we played there, and they had a number of cameras set up, and it was kind of like a pay to watch sort of thing, where fans would pay like for admission into the stream. It was like a video stream, and we basically just played a show as we normally would in front of a big crowd of 3 people.
Was that weird?
Obviously the crowd, the virtual crowd was a lot bigger, but it was kind of cool though. I'm not gonna lie. It was kind of like being in like the rehearsal studio or something like that.
Yeah, I guess like one of those sound stage things they used to do back
Yeah,
in the day where a band would be playing live, but it wasn't like an actual show. It was just on a stage somewhere for recording purpose.
yeah, yeah,
So
definitely.
does Daryl's House do many of those things? Do you know? Or was it that your only involvement was knowing that you guys are playing there?
Yeah, that was about. I mean, I know they had done. They must have done other ones like that. But yeah, that was the only. That was the first time I'd ever done anything like that. But I think they do other. I think they've been having like a bunch of virtual concerts and stuff. So
Yeah, I never thought about that because they're very wired up. Like being in there, you have multiple cameras and screens. So like I remember going there and we were sitting in a room that wasn't, had a view of the stage, but you could see it on the TV. So they're kind of like internally wired for that. I imagine it'll be pretty easy for them to then stream out.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they're actually already. They're pretty much like hooked up. I mean, they were in a kind of in a perfect position for this because I'm pretty sure that they record most of their shows anyways and like put it out as kind of like a video series online. So so yeah, I mean it was pretty pro. I mean all of um the resolution was really great and yeah, they were all like, they had the lighting all dialed in and everything. So it looked pretty professional.
That's great, man. At least you guys were able to do that and have that kind of outlet for it. But it's a bummer to have like a tour cancel when you're like all ready to go. I mean, did that like shake you up as like, stability wise for what you were doing?
Um a little bit. I definitely had to. There was like maybe a couple weeks of like panic, and then we just kind of like I'm the kind of person that will always find something to do. I'm never like I'm never like how should I say, like scared for having like a whole block of free time with nothing to do. So it was like, at first it was kind of like, oh man, what am I going to do for the next, year or however long this lasts? But, I found ways to keep myself occupied. So
And
it wasn't too
are you
bad.
still doing like lessons through this? Do you do virtual lessons? Is that part of your protocol still with what you're doing or?
Yeah, yeah. I'm actually working for School of Rock right now, doing a whole bunch of virtual lessons through them. It was my first time ever doing anything like that. Um, haven't been doing too much like private stuff. I think last time I was here, I was kind of like getting I was trying to get like a Zoom lesson thing kind of like up and running, but I guess that kind of like fell into my lap, via School of Rock. Uh, so that's basically what I've been, in terms of teaching. That's been my main thing.
What's the School of Rock thing like? How's that? How'd you get involved? I mean, I've heard about it. I know of a few people who have done that, people's kids and stuff where they kind of put together bands and let them get on stage. And did you hear about it? Did they contact you? Like, what, how'd that start?
No, actually, one of my best friends, Chris, works for them, and they were looking for a guitar teacher, and I was recommended. Um, Also, Jeff Morrow. Also, I'll give him a shout out too. He also recommended me for the job, and so it was really nice to have that during this time. Um, just like, you know, any little bit counts.
Well, yeah,
So it was a word of mouth kind of thing.
they're pretty well established, right? Like they're kind of like the
Yeah, they're like
mainstream
a
as far as like rock band lessons, sort of.
yeah, they're like a like international franchise. I think they have locations all across the country, and I think in other countries too. I think they're in like Australia and stuff like that. So
It's kind of
pretty
funny. I
well.
always wondered, like, were they a thing before that Jack Black movie, or was it like made after that?
Oh man, I have no idea. I know I heard the first time I had heard of that the School of Rock was I think when friends of mine started working for them maybe like a couple years ago or something.
hmm
And But yeah, I don't know. But people ask that a lot, actually, and I don't have an answer for that. I guess you'd have to trace the, uh, I don't know, when did that movie even come out? It must have been in like the 2000, like early 2000s or
It
mid
sounds about
2000s.
right. I know I saw it, but I don't know how far along it was that I saw it. I did not go to theaters to see it, but
No, me neither. Yeah, it was a while ago.
so what their whole kind of thing is like they're putting together like a band for kids to play in, right? They kind of like give people lessons and then they want to put together a band. Like, what do you think about that kind of philosophy of putting together a band for students that way?
I think it's a cool format for teaching. It's definitely unique because I come from a very sort of traditional guitar, I guess, education where first you like learn to read and you learn a lot of music theory and you learn all this stuff, like you work out of a lot of books. And I think I'll say like the one thing that I wish I had when I was a lot younger was like more interaction, um, with other musicians. I eventually got that, but it's nice to have that at a young age and early in your musical career.
Yeah, I guess it lets you know like what you're practicing for. It's one thing when you're like, oh, I want to learn this instrument and you've got, your lessons, scales, chords, whatever you're doing. But when you know like, oh, this is how it fits into the bigger picture, like, do you think that motivates kids more or anyone, I
Yeah, it,
guess?
it holds them accountable, I think, because if you're in a band, you kind of like you have your bandmates that are looking up to you to um, or they're expecting you to know your part. So there's kind of that little pressure. I think that pressure is very good, because you don't want to disappoint the people who you need to play a show with. So I I think that definitely pushes people to get better.
Yeah, that social contract there. It's like, oh man, you
Yep.
didn't learn your part. Has that ever happened to you, like in playing with, the Sawyer Fredericks group at all? Have you ever got into a situation where you're like, ooh, I didn't do as much as I should, or
Um, we usually work everything out um, in the studio, and we don't have a whole lot of I guess like quote homework.
hmm.
So everything we pretty much have everything already memorized for shows and stuff like that. So that's never really been an issue with this project, but I've had definitely been in bands in the past where um, I've like shown up to gigs a little bit less than prepared, and I'll just kind of have to, flub my way through some stuff. But that's just like I feel like every musician has those. Everyone kind of has those moments. I'm sure you have.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, especially if it's like any kind of open mic situation, you're getting up to jam with people and you think you know the song they're gonna
Oh
play,
yeah,
and then you're like, actually, either I
actually I
learned
don't
it
know that
wrong
one.
all this time and I've been playing it wrong, or I don't know as much as I thought I did.
Yeah, or you only know how to play it like with a capo or something like that. I've definitely like been in that situation where like I'll know the key of the song in like open, when I'm in like open G or something like that with a capo. But if I don't have that, if I'm trying to like explain the chords to somebody, I have to think about it.
Yeah, no, I noticed some people like use capos a lot and some people not at all. I've never really used one because of the tuning aspect. I'm lazy about that. But what do you
Mm.
find like that it does for you using a capo? Is it just getting the voicing right?
Um, I've actually, since I've been writing my own songs and singing, I've actually been using a capo more because my voice is not, I don't have a really big range. So I'll have to make like half step or whole step key changes. And I love the sound of open chords so much, especially when it's like just me and I don't have like a band behind me or anything like that. So it's kind of nice to have. It's nice to be able to just like move something up or down a half step, um, but still keep the chord voicings. So it's helped me a lot, and I just like I like the sound of it.
So in this like kind of forced downtime that you've experienced, where you guys were about to go on tour and then that all fell through, have you been finding yourself writing more? Has it given you a chance to kind of dive into personal material, or what have you done with that?
Yeah, I would say I've been doing a lot of writing. I actually put out two songs with a good friend of mine, Corey Lewin, who's a pretty he's like he's he's a singer-songwriter on his own, and he's quite good. He has a decent following. He has some like really good songs out. But we started working together, and we put out two songs over I think it was early summer time, and we so we were able to write and stuff like that, and that was one of the creative projects I had going on. And I've also been writing a lot on my own as well. I kind of have like about an album's worth of just songs, acoustic singer-songwriter kind of songs that I'm kind of trying to like whittle down at the moment and figure out what to do with.
Are you considering like putting out like a solo album of your stuff?
Yeah, definitely at some point. I have a few. I think before I do that, Corey and I are probably going to put out an EP,
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 songs, and then after that, I might venture into trying to put out a solo album or something like that.
So in this situation, what does Corey play? Or do you guys like trade off instruments, or is he just like producing and recording? What do you guys, what's
So
the arrangement?
it's a really cool project for me because we both do basically exactly the same thing. We're both guitarists and singers and songwriters, and we both kind of produce as well. So like um, we can kind of like divvy up, verses and different parts of songs. It's yeah. I mean, I'd say like it's about 50-50 in terms of songwriting and producing.
So you guys are like a kind of a songwriting team, you would say?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, we've written these songs together and tracked them all together. We're both playing guitar, um, and yeah.
So in that kind of situation where you have two people working on a song, like what do you find makes that work? Because I imagine it's probably pretty hard if you've got like a pretty strong idea, maybe the other person doesn't, or you're in different directions. Like, how do you navigate those waters?
Yeah, how do we figure out who takes the charge on any
Yeah, who's
particular
Paul,
song?
who's John, and who's George?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it kind of differs. It kind of like kind of changes based on the song. So we both write, and we both write some songs that would work for this project, and then some that wouldn't. So we kind of like throw some ideas back and forth, whether it's just like a couple lines or a chorus or a verse, or sometimes it's like 3/4 of an entire song that's already written. And we kind of like, talk about it, and we're like, can you see this working? Do you think we could do something with this? And if that's a yes, then we'll usually work out guitar parts for both of us. So our approach is first, how would we play this as a duo? How would we, what would the two guitar lines be? What would the harmonies be? Who would take what verse and what chorus? And then we kind of like base the recordings around that.
So in your writing process, it seems like, as you said, when you're trying to work out a song, would it work as a duo? Um, is that how you judge whether it's worth continuing with a song? Like, does it stand alone without too much wrapped around it production wise?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So if the song doesn't really cut it, just played by itself, sometimes we'll make like a little phone recording, something like that, and we'll listen back to it, and that'll kind of be the determining factor. for the song. But they usually end up, once we get into producing them and stuff, they usually end up sounding like almost entirely different. But I feel like that's just the nature of recording and producing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. When a song stands on its own, it's kind of undeniable because you can hear it being done in very different styles. And I guess that's why certain songs endure even, between different generations. An artist can have a hit with something that was a hit 20, 30 years ago because, well, the song is good no matter what. But if both of you guys coming from the producing side as well, do you ever like find yourself writing a song knowing what you could do with it in the studio? And does that ever like guide what your choices are?
Yeah, I don't know if we're there quite yet. I think we're still kind of trying to figure out what our overall sound is going to be. But I suspect that as we keep writing, we're probably going to get to that point where we can write for an album or like, write with the production in mind. But as of right now, we're just writing as if we're just going to play these songs, just as a duo acoustically.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's kind of hard to see like if you're thinking album wise or not. And that's, I guess, in a weird way, it kind of pains me to say, but the idea of an album is almost like an antiquated thing because of how music's shared these days. Like, do you think that like with the digital format that like releasing one at a time singles is more like the way to do things, or it's kind of a complicated question.
Yeah,
I'm sure no one knows for sure.
I've actually thought about that a lot, and I mean we totally fall under that umbrella of people who like put out singles, and I think like the cool thing about a single is that it's almost like albums are very expensive, very like time consuming, and I feel like an album is almost like a statement at this point, whereas singles are kind of like, you can kind of like test things out. You can kind of see, what sounds work, what kind of songs people kind of react more to, and an album is like a more committal sort of thing. I don't know. I mean, what's do you have an opinion on, I guess, like the state of artists like putting out, singles? Because I think there are some artists who like almost exclusively put out singles.
Yeah, I think it is. Well, there's two parts to that. One, I think in a way, it's almost a return to the early days of, popular music, especially pop rock, where people were putting out singles. I don't think Chuck Berry and those people were putting out albums for a long time. And when they were, it was like kind of a collection of their singles, more or less. So in a way, it's sort of a return to that form. But I also think it's indicative of our current music climate, because as you were saying, an album is more of a commitment, more of a vibe that you're capturing. And in the days where you would walk into a studio and you're going to be there for weeks, months, whatever it takes, you're kind of, an album was like a capturing of that moment. And probably with more of the analog world, you're reduced in what you can finick with thereafter. To whereas now, where we are in a much more mobile world, and with digital recording, there's no end to what you can do. I think the idea of capturing a moment and a continuous sound for several songs is in a way not as indicative of how people are creating music now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I thought that is actually very interesting that you point out that like music started out like in like the 50s and 60s, like you could only fit so much media on, or you could only fit so many songs on like on vinyl. So it's like, that was more of a necessity kind of thing back then. But I guess, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know what to make of it really, other than, you know, I like putting out singles because it's it's a little bit less committal, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's more the way to do things now. I mean, I see it more often when I'm finding new bands. They tend to have like a string of singles that are up, on Spotify or whatever. And I guess I'll ask you, when's the last time you've listened to a full album from a new artist, like an album that was released in 2020 or 2019 that you listened to the full thing?
Um, Very recently, actually, there's an album by, do you know Raylan Baxter?
Do not.
He's I'm not sure where he's from, but he's kind of like a folk, I guess he's an Americana artist, but he's really great. And I listened to I was so I guess taken by one song that he put out that I just ended up listening to the entire album. So I mean, I still and also I will say that sometimes I've discovered a single by an artist and I've been kind of disappointed that they don't have an entire album because I want to hear more of them. So I guess that's kind of like the flip side of it. You can sometimes people will be left wanting more, but I guess that's kind of a good place to be as an artist.
Yeah. Oh, and there's also like in my mind, nothing worse than when you find like, oh, this is a really great song. And then you go to the album and that's really the only good song on it. You're like, oh, well, what happened there? You got to look up, is there different writing credits on this one? Like, why did only one become good,
Yeah.
I wonder why that happens
I've
sometimes.
definitely experienced that as well. Trying to think of there's like a specific band that I'm thinking of that was like that. Oh yeah, do you know the band from the 80s? They did I think they're called Squeeze. They did Tempted by the Fruit of Another.
Yep.
I really like that song. It's one of my favorite songs ever written. And I think I went to listen to the album that song was off of, and it was just didn't really do it for me.
Yeah, that's such a weird thing how a band or an artist can write like one really good song that like connects with a lot of people and is just undeniably a great song, but then like can't replicate that. Like you being a songwriter and going through this process and collaborating, like what do you think makes that difference between a song that's like really good or one that's just like okay?
If I only knew.
Aren't we all wondering that?
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of songwriters just kind of like put out whatever and hope that something sticks. Because I mean, I don't think if I wrote a truly great song, I'm not even sure that I would be able to recognize it as one. Or I might not think it's that great, and maybe a whole bunch of other people would. So, I don't know.
When you're writing, are there certain techniques or like templates or things that you think about, or is it like just an inspirational flow? I mean, do you think about like crafting like, oh, this is the type of song that usually works, I'm going to try to make it in that way, or you're just like come up with something like this feels good?
I'd say it's more of this feels good kind of approach. I mean, whether it's it usually always starts with some sort of guitar riff, not like a Chuck Berry guitar riff, but like some chord progression that's kind of catchy and all, something that just kind of catches the ear. It could even be just pleasing to the ear. It doesn't even have to be like super catchy or anything, but just something that sounds like it's gonna turn into a song. And then that's like criteria number one, and criteria number two is if I can like somehow write, some sort of meaningful lyric from that kind of like guitar, from that chord progression.
Now,
and usually the first like couple lines will kind of dictate, what the song's going to be about.
Oh, as far as like theme, in terms of like
as far as like what the song actually, what I'm actually going to write about.
Do you have like intentional things that you want to write about, or does the song just kind of lead you into like what it makes you feel like writing about?
Um, sometimes I will intentionally write a song about something.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, not always though. Not always. Sometimes I'm sure you've maybe experienced this, but sometimes it feels like a song just kind of writes itself.
Yeah, there's definitely those times where I'll pick up a guitar and I kind of find myself singing a song that doesn't exist. It's obviously it must be a conglomeration of, all of these things I've heard, and there's only so many chords that fit
Yeah.
after each other and melodies that seem to fit.
All of your influences are kind of like mixing together, and then sometimes I feel that when I'm writing, I'm really just like regurgitating, to put it very unappealingly, just pieces of just like different artists I've listened to over the years.
I think anyone is, no one's going to experience music unless they're hearing somebody else doing it first. So no matter what, I think everybody who's writing songs is influenced by it. I guess what I think about the trick, maybe, if you will call it that, of bands or artists that I like, where their influences are a little more obscured. When I hear something that's like very, very, very close to something else that already exists and is popular, I'm like, I see what you're doing there. You're jumping on that bandwagon.
Yeah.
But then when you hear something and you're like, well, there's a little bit of this and there's a little bit of that and a little bit of that, you're like, I can get some of your influences, but it's not like obvious.
Yeah. And I mean, some of those, that's kind of a really cool feeling where you hear a song or an artist that like vaguely, is like vaguely reminiscent of something, but it's not obvious. It's not like shamelessly trying to be, something else. It's just, it's like uniquely copying, I guess.
Yeah, there's this band that I like called the Growlers, and whatever reason, when I first heard them, I'm like, this is the only band I've ever heard that sounds like the Doors without trying to sound like the Doors. There was something in his voice and delivery, and they're kind of, they're a West Coast beachy sort of band, but they do this kind of, they call it like beach goth. It's got this kind of surfery sort of vibe, but it's a little darker. But there was something in the overall presentation that made me think very Doorsy, but they didn't sound like somebody trying to imitate the Doors. I'm like, I've never experienced that before. So you're right. Sometimes you can see what seems like a strong reflection or echo, but it's not like a one-to-one comparison.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I've definitely heard that. I'm trying to think of a band that kind of like fits that description of like someone that I guess they're like, like just vaguely reminiscent of something.
Yeah, and I guess it happens a lot because, as I was saying, all music's influenced by other music. So yeah, it's almost impossible to not sound at least like something. I mean, I'm sure it's happened sometimes you're writing and think like, is that already a song?
Oh, all the time.
When something
Literally all the time.
seems too easy or too good, you're like, this got to be a song already.
Yeah, and then I'll play it for someone and that's the worst actually for me, is when I play a song for someone and they're like, oh, that sounds exactly like this. And then I go to listen to that song and I'm like, damn, it's the same thing. It's almost the same song.
Like even a song that you knew before or like you hadn't heard, it just happens to be.
No, maybe something I have just never heard.
Yeah.
But maybe I did hear it and I just didn't remember it.
I got to wonder if, a lot of these lawsuits and things that happen, it might not be intentional a lot of the times. And
I think most of the time it's probably not intentional. Obviously, I'm sure there are exceptions, but what was the big one? There was like a Tom Petty song, right?
Well, there's that one Sam Smith did, like "Stay
Yeah,
with Me,"
Sam
which is a rip
Smith.
off of "Don't Back Down." I'm like, I don't think that
Yeah,
guy was really listening to Tom Petty that much. I mean, maybe, but I don't know.
they're such. I mean, they're so vastly different artists. I mean, it's not like that was a pretty tough. That was a tough one for me to buy.
But the thing
Um,
I don't know is I don't know if how much Sam Smith is like writing, arranging his own tracks, or is he just like the person singing and maybe somebody else wrote the track or something. You know what I mean? I never know like
True.
if there's a producer who might have come up with this or songwriters and he's just the face, the
Yeah.
vocalist, and maybe they're like, here, sing to this one. It's like, oh, this is cool, but might not have even known, somebody else behind the scenes could have been.
Yeah, I mean, he could have had like a team of songwriters working for him, and one of those songwriters is like the real culprit in
Right.
the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Someone who's not going to be of any legal liability is like, what, let's see if this one flies through.
Yeah, they were paid like $1,000 an hour
Yeah.
to write a song for Sam Smith. But yeah, who knows? I don't know. Maybe he does write his own music.
I certainly don't know. I don't want to judge him either. But yeah, it's weird
Yeah,
when something like
yeah,
that
same
happens.
same here.
But that's another strange thing, these songwriting teams that happen now, where you find out like behind the scenes, there's these camps where, 10 songwriters, 10 beat makers, 10 lyricists are all like flown to some camp and they all get together and rack their brains over a few weeks, and then the artist gets to hear a few of them and chooses what they want. And then, it's this whole like production line thing to music that like, if you don't
Yeah,
know and
it,
you're
it
just
seems
hearing
very
it,
corporate.
yeah.
But I
What's
guess
weird,
so was like Motown. I mean, that was like the same, sort of thing. That sort of hit factory sort of even like the jazz standards from like the 40s and 50s, all those show tunes. I mean, those were all done in a very like almost like assembly line kind of fashion.
yeah, what was that called? Like the Brill Building? Is that what I'm thinking of? Where there's a
I think
collection
so.
of
Yeah, that sounds
songwriters
sounds about right.
and there's like certain names that like pop up, time after time after time. And I guess a lot of people would get a start as a songwriter in one of those situations and then might go, solo. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that was Willie Nelson. He started out as like a songwriter trying to write for other people and things. And it wasn't until much later on that he became the Willie Nelson we know. But, I don't think he started out completely like trying to be the Willie we know now.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I didn't know that. Um,
Yeah, well, he
but I think
wrote,
that there are a bunch of artists out now who are kind of fit that bill of like they were a songwriter turned artist.
yeah, and there's a lot of like producers are becoming like the stars now. It seems like
Yeah,
if a certain producer works on something that becomes, more important than maybe even the artist who's behind it.
yeah, yeah. That's pretty interesting. I just watched I watched a documentary on about like a K-pop band, and it was on one of those streaming services.
That's an
And
interesting world, man. That stuff's crazy. If you,
yeah, well, talk about like a factory assembly line kind
it's
of,
almost like a cult how they control their lives.
yeah, I mean, and some of these kids who become, world famous, they have like, billions of fans. Um, they they kind of go to these, I guess they're kind of like boarding schools where they basically train you to become a pop star, and you're there for like years sometimes until, the record label decides to put you in a group. And I thought that was pretty insane.
Yeah, man. And that's what's so weird about music is because there's almost like these vastly different schools of discipline. There's like that assembly line business approach, which works and it sells. And a lot of what people hear is a product of that. But then there's the other like one guy or girl or whatever you are, one one earthling, let's just say that for all intents and purposes,
Yeah.
on their own coming up with something, and then it suddenly gets the ear of a lot of people. It's almost like the polar opposite of that, you know?
Yeah, and then they get sucked into the machine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it does seem like there are multiple ways to go about, you know, being a very successful musician. But yeah, I don't know. And sometimes they to loop back to the K-pop documentary, they actually some of the producers, they actually found they like recruited because they were like DJs in like some local, you know, scene or something. Like they had already created a buzz for themselves as like independent artists, and then they got like, you know, picked up by this this record label. So sometimes those worlds kind of like collide as well. Like they'll find somebody who is kind of like a lone wolf, has like an immense amount of talent, is kind of like a self-made kind of person, and then they'll, you know, launch that artist, put that artist, you know, in with you know, maybe 3 or 4 other people that were like, you know, part of the assembly line factory kind of world.
Right. Yeah, I guess even in a way, there's a little bit of a tie-in and an analogy to what you've experienced with Sawyer Fredericks, is that it was, you know, from the Voice show, but he's clearly not the type of, you know, cookie cutter artist that you would think coming through one of those things, and has this very raw, you know, type of voice and presentation that doesn't seem to fit in that like singing competition world, but obviously killed it and connects with a lot of people. So, and then you became part of his band, so it's sort of like a little bit of those two worlds.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it is. It's actually very. I guess the more years that go by that we tour and like, you know, make music together, the more I like forget that, you know, that was even a thing, that he was like on The Voice and everything like that. But because like now I kind of view the band as just like a unit in itself, and I forgot that there was like, you know, in all of the years before this band, there was like, you know, that whole solo career that happened. But yeah, it is an interesting, you know, clash of worlds.
Do you think it's like do you think he likes it more doing like with the band that's like his band, as opposed to like doing that, you know, manufactured thing, as you said?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he has, you know, ultimate creative control, you know, right now, which is I don't think, you know, I can't speak for him obviously, but I don't think he got that, you know, when you're on something as big as, you know, The Voice, you have like a whole team of people that are like, you know, dictating every little thing. So
yeah, it's got to be a weird way to like get indoctrinated into like the touring music world, you know, because it's almost like the opposite of what you would think, where you have to like, you know, start playing your local clubs or open mics or whatever, and work up to like almost top down in that way. Although I don't know, maybe he started off with open mics.
Well, actually he did start out doing like farmers markets and stuff. I think he had a pretty big local following in upstate New York prior to, you know, The Voice or anything like that.
Yeah.
Which is why I think like every time we do shows up there, up near like Saratoga or like Albany, up in that area, there's always like this really massive, you know, dedicated following of people that knew him, you know, before The Voice and everything.
Yeah. So how does it feel for you, sort of like now, as we said, like being forced to like, you know, studio music and writing and recording, as opposed to like playing live as much? Like, do you miss that being on stage thing, or are you cool with like either or?
I do really love playing in front of people. I mean, there's like, I that's a big part of my life. I mean, I love doing it. I love performing. Um, but, at the same time, I also really enjoy just hunkering down and writing songs and recording. Um, so I guess to answer that, like both,
Yeah.
I like both of those things equally. And I've recently, because I haven't had a chance to really perform all that much, I'm definitely missing that. Definitely missing that right now.
Yeah, not getting to scratch that itch. It's definitely a different feeling, when
Yeah.
you're on the spot and performing, there's that, feedback or whatever it is. But that's really valuable. I think that you have that well-rounded both sides where you enjoy each one just as much because it's almost like you'll never be like bored with it. Some people are really just want to be on stage and that's it and they hate being in a studio. Some people are the other way around where they love being in the studio but like being on stage makes them nervous. It's like the fact that you have both seems like it's probably the best combination.
Yeah. And I like to just, as long as I'm, making music and playing my instrument, I think I'm, I think I'm happy. I'm really thankful that I just get to apply myself, all the years of learning guitar and also learning how to sing and just being a musician and figuring my way out through all of that stuff. Um, I just feel really fortunate that I can just apply that in any sense, whether it's in the live, whether it's live or in the studio or just by myself. It's just really nice to be able to do that.
Yeah, I'm sure as you work on each of those dynamics, they probably like feed into each other, like having the time where you can spend writing and recording, you'll probably think about things differently when you're in the live setting or vice versa. When you're playing live, you might see something that works or doesn't work that then when you're writing, like, oh, when I play this live, like, do you find that they play into each other and sharpen each other?
Yeah, I mean, recently, I guess in the most recent album that um, that we did with Sawyer, we we paid a lot of attention to writing out very specific parts, so that when we're playing live, we're not just improvising all the time. We're not just like making up our parts on the spot. Like I think we made a very conscious effort to like write out very specific parts for our instruments so that we just sound tighter. Lots of hits that we all play together and stuff like that. And when you have all of that stuff planned out and you know what you're going to play, you can, at least for me, I can kind of focus a little bit more on my stage presence and stuff like that. I'm not like thinking like, all right, what am I going to play next? What are the chords? What was my part for this? All of that's all figured out so I can focus on actually putting on a show.
Yeah, and from a listener standpoint, like when there is more of a strong melodic hook that you hear repeating as opposed to, it's always cool to see somebody while out and play a cool solo or a complicated passage or whatever. But when there's that like sort of returning hook that may not be super complicated, but as a listener, you tend to like anticipate that. So is that what you mean, like by writing more parts that are like stay the same?
Yeah, I think, well, by writing more parts that stay the same, it takes some of the guesswork out of playing live. So I feel like I can put on a better performance when I know what I'm going to play.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like in terms of like, I guess like moving around and getting
Yeah.
into it and stuff. But also there are some, if the audience member had listened to the album, like if they know what to expect, I think sometimes it's kind of nice to hear obviously you don't want to hear like a cookie cutter copy of what was on the album. You want, some differences, but I think people like to hear some things that are repeated. It's like that familiarity that you get.
Yeah, and there's something that, if there's a certain part or melody that especially too as a player, you can play it with more authority to where like you're like nailing that part. There's no like, sloppiness when you're like, you're hitting something like just right. It probably feels better too.
Yep. Yeah, and I think we have gotten like a lot tighter since we started doing that, since we started writing out stuff. Of course, we still have our like, improvisational sections. I can still take guitar solos and do, whatever I want. And we actually all have solos, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, you want to see that live to hear the musicians kind of be able to open up. And it's also, it's not the kind of music that's meant to be very, cookie cutter. It's not like, very precise power pop or something where like everyone's got the exact thing. There's certain music calls for it and certain music it doesn't,
Yeah, I think in like the folk Americana kind of genre, also touching on like some blues and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, there's like so much room to like, be kind of loose with your instrument and stuff like that. Not especially because like the chords aren't, they're pretty, they're not super complex songs in terms of like chord structure. So when you have that, it kind of like opens up more opportunities to, add little things here and there.
Yeah, and I guess it's the kind of music that you want to be able to be reactive and expressive maybe of the moment you're in, because I'm sure each time there's a little different mood or whatever, as opposed to like you're presenting a mood to the audience. You're kind of like, it's probably, I'm sure you feel different on different nights and where you're playing and how they are. Some bands, they come across like it's the same movie, and if you follow them, it's never going to change.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we definitely, I think, project our moods out on stage. And also, it depends on the venue too, because some venues we play are like very dark and intimate. Like people are seated. The sound is like really crisp. You can play really lightly and, you'll come through. But then other venues are like rock clubs where it's standing room, general admission. Everything's really big and loud and boomy. And if you play a really soft, subtle little passage, like no one's going to hear that. So you kind of have to like be a little more aggressive and upfront with how you play.
It's when you do the windmill.
Yeah. Yeah, and then smash our instruments at the end of the show.
Well, that's good though to be involved in an outfit like that where you feel like you can adapt and express depending on the environment, and that probably makes you feel more connected to the music because it's like you're truly essential to creating it. It's not just like play your part and get it right every time. Like you're a fill-in for a backing track, really.
Right. Yeah, it's not like how I would. I've never been in a pit before. I think I did one pit gig in like college a long time ago, but that's how I would imagine that's like, you just need to like just play your part perfectly. And
what do you mean by pit gig? I first thought like mosh pit. I'm like, no, that's not what you mean.
Oh, sorry. So for like shows, for like Broadway shows or musicals and stuff like that, you're in the pit where the orchestra is.
Oh, so you're hidden you're not on stage, you're hidden.
Yeah, you're hidden. You're the supporting music. You have to play everything exactly perfect or else it's not going to line up with the scene that's going on, something like that.
It's funny. Somebody that I played with, he was telling me he took his daughters to see Taylor Swift, and he was like, whatever, I'll go see Taylor Swift with my daughters. And he noticed that it was a stage with the curtain and it was just her out front and with maybe her acoustic. And he was listening. He's like, that's a live hi-hat. Like I can tell that's a live hi-hat. And you realize there was a band behind the curtain that you weren't even seeing. It's like,
Wow.
that's weird. Like I want to see the band who's playing. Like that's a live band. You just can't see them.
Yeah, I don't know if I wonder what went into that decision to hide the band. Like why?
Yeah, I don't
Like
know.
what's the I don't know, maybe the band didn't want to be seen. Maybe they wanted to
They didn't want to be
keep their
seen with
keep their
playing.
covers. Yeah, I don't know.
But it's a weird thing when you find that. It's like, why don't you just have a backing track, But who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I do think live music has a feel to it. You can feel when something's live, or at least I think I can. I haven't
Yeah.
been deceived yet, but I don't know. I don't think I've ever played to a backing track in any sort of professional gig situation.
Like
So
performance wise, yeah.
yeah, never done it. I played to a click before,
Yeah.
which is that does kind of keep you sort of in line, but it's still live.
Is that weird to
You can
adapt
still
to?
mess up.
Yeah. Is that hard to do? Like if you're hearing the drummer, then hearing that, or was the drummer like really on?
The drummer was really on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine it would have to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I would hope so. Or else that could really confuse you.
So with the stuff that you've been working on and writing, what was your friend's name again? You're working with
Corey
Corey.
Lewin.
With Corey, are you guys planning on, if you can, eventually doing any live stuff with this, or is this going to be only a recording project?
Absolutely. I mean, we're gonna put the music out first,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of figure out, how we're gonna perform it, where we're gonna perform it. But yeah, I mean, we're 100% planning on doing that. And when we do that, it's going to be definitely like kind of a stripped down duo kind of thing, which I think will like complement the super produced songs kind of nicely.
Right. I was going to ask are you planning on putting like a band together of your own, or you would just want to do it as a duo at first, maybe, or who knows?
Yeah, maybe when we can pay a band to play with us, but until that happens, I will probably just do the duo thing.
Yeah.
But you never know. I don't know. Maybe might be compelled to put a group together.
So are any of those recordings like available yet? Or you guys
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a few up now.
There are 2 songs that are out right now on I think definitely Spotify and also Apple Music and something else.
What are they under? Is it under Jerome Goosman? Is there a name for the project? Like what's?
Yep. It's under my name and Corey's. We kind of have it's a joint. I think it's listed as like Jerome Goosman and Corey Lewin.
Okay.
But if you type in my name, it'll be I only have 3 songs out, so.
So if people want to look them up, if they're listening, they want to look up your songs. That's how they
just type in my name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So there's 2 up from that project, and you guys are still in the process of doing more.
Yep. Yeah, we put out 2 singles. We have 2 more on the way, and we have a number of songs that we've written but haven't gotten around to recording yet. But we're almost done tracking these 2, so we just got to send it out to get mixed and mastered and figure out the album art and all that other stuff. And so you'll probably see them in the hopefully next few months.
Nice. Well, that's great, man. So you got a few up and a few and more that'll be coming. So people listening, please check them out. And hopefully we can see some live arrangements at some point soon. Who knows what's going on with everything? I want to keep my fingers crossed that live music will be, coming back sooner rather than later. But it's kind of all up in the air.
Definitely eventually. It'll eventually happen.
What are your thoughts about that? Do you think it's going to come, like roaring back and people are going to be like super excited, or do you think people are still going to be like, I don't know if I want to go
I
out yet?
mean, I think people right now are so starved for live entertainment that I think that like I think live music is going to be just as it's going to come back full force when when it's allowed to, when we can. So I'm the only thing that I'm really worried about is some of the venues,
Yeah.
because I know there are a ton of venues that won't make it through this. Probably a few that we rely on to um, let us play at, year after year. But I don't know. It's hard to tell with that. But I don't. I think live music is in whatever fashion is going to come back pretty strong.
Yeah, I think as long as there's the demand, like new venue opportunities will pop up. It's like
Yeah.
I've heard about in it's sometime in like the 70s or something. There was some kind of like a Vietnamese restaurant or something where like a lot of punk bands came out of. There was some weird thing where it was like a restaurant that someone talked, them into letting them have a punk show or whatever, and it became this like venue out of nowhere, but it was not at all like meant to be. So I wonder if those like weird pop-up things were, places that weren't planned to be venues. If there's live music, it's like, oh, actually, we're
Well,
doing this now.
I think that was already happening before this. I mean, with stuff like all the DIY venues, you know, all around the country, um, and like like So Far Sounds, that kind of thing. All those like pop-up kind of concerts and stuff like that. I think it was already, live music was already sort of going in that direction.
Yeah, hopefully that continues, man. I mean, I very much look forward to being able to see you play live, with some of this new stuff.
Yeah, likewise. I'd like to share the stage with you again at some point.
Hey, man, what does they say? If the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise.
There
I
you
hope
go.
so. And I really appreciate you making the time to, come on and talk to us and catch us up on what's going on. It's really, it's good to hear that you're still finding a way to keep on with your musical expression, that you're recording stuff and you got some things out and some new stuff that's going to be coming out. It's hopeful, to see other musicians still soldiering on and not just getting like bummed out about all this. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everyone's allowed to get bummed out, but you got to just keep. I mean, if you're a musician, you play music. You just do it. So you kind of find a way to keep going on.
absolutely, man. I mean, I guess that's a great place to wrap it up, is find a way to keep going on. And I'm so glad that you are. It's good to see you. I hope to do this in person again sometime, when we're allowed to. But for
Yeah,
now, this was good
definitely.
enough.
Cool. Yeah, thanks a lot, Scott. It's always nice to talk to you, and yeah, definitely hope we could do this in person, and I
Absolutely,
could give you
man.
your book back.
Well, read it first, man. You got to read on the road before you
All
get it
right, I'll
back.
read it,
Yeah.
and then I'll eventually get it back to you.
No worries, man. As long as it gets read, and then we can talk about it, and that'll be cool.
Actually, yeah, that would be a good. That's a whole at least an hour right there.
Yeah. Hopefully you get around to that soon. But dude, so good to see you, even though it's virtual. And best luck with everything. And I'm looking forward to checking out the new releases as they come out. And we'll certainly be in touch, man.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. I appreciate it. And we love you all. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye. Sweet.